Good morning, everyone. Ben from Clarke Murphy, Australia.
Henrik, thanks so much for having me. Very, very, very excited. I'm joining you as CEO of Clarke Murphy Print. My family's been in print for 5 generations. You could say that ink is in the blood.
Five generations.
Yes. So yeah,
Wow,
and
I
I,
didn't know that. Oh my
I
God.
absolutely think I have 4 daughters, and I absolutely think that there'll be a sixth generation because this is genuinely the greatest time to be in the printing industry.
Mm.
I hear a lot of people say it's not like the good old days. Well, this is our good old days, Hendrik, and very, very, very excited and always happy to talk about this amazing industry. But yeah, this business, Clarke Murphy, my dad actually left his grandfather's company in 87 and in 89 started in the garage. And we now just have on about 95 people, run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we're in offset digital wide format roll labels. And on the back of coming to a number of Gelato summits and talking to you personally, and also a little thing called data and research, we launched apparel 3 weeks ago. So we've got DTG and DTF. So look, it's the same correlation as when we started roll labels. We're printing on something, we've got great people, and we've bought great equipment. And then obviously we're going to talk a little bit about software today. So I'll leave that for now. But a big shout out and hello from down under. And that's
Yeah.
That's the Clarke Murphy print story.
So a company that literally was started in a garage. That's really cool. Fifth generation. Wow. So just before we get started, Ben, and we're all eager to hear about your journey here. But one of the reasons why I started Gelato was I read an article that spoke about the amount of capacity that this industry has. And the article stated, and this was like 17 years ago. That's how long time I've been journeying building Gelato. But the article stated that there is 6 times more capacity than demand, and that this industry actually needs more demand to flow in. And it's not about only machineries. I'm not saying that it's not about machineries, but it's not only about machineries. And ever since I joined this industry, many of the discussions, if not all, gravitate towards machines, machines, machines. And now we're in an era where I see an enormous cost benefit, production efficiency, product expansion opportunities coming with focusing more on software, focusing more on an operating system. And so I would really appreciate if you could just, from your perspective, comment on that 6 times more capacity than demand, and then how Clarke Murphy and Gelato started working together, your thought process around that.
Yeah. Thanks, Hendrik. It's a huge question. I'm 45 years of age. I literally grew up on a polar guillotine and a one-color GDO, for those of you who technically know what that is. So, it's always been about big grey machinery. You finance them 5 years nil and then you go and get another one. And don't get me wrong, it is still very, very important. But, we concentrated on our business and probably over the last 3 years, we've really realized that our business can only go as fast as the slowest part. If we look at what we previously had before we started our journey with Gelato, it was a patchwork quilt of every vendor. There was something from Heidelberg, something from HP, something from Swiss Q. And all these vendors or manufacturers have tried to make software, ultimately probably failing to the lesser degree, because they are only focused on their part of the industry. Whereas the reality is, as I said in my opening, we're offset, digital, wide format, roll labels, and now apparel. We need something that is agnostic and pulling everything together. So that's where our Gelato journey started. I was at D-Scoop and I met Zach on the Gelato stand, and that's where it started. And then went to the summit in Madrid, and that's where we met. And that was the start of the relationship between Gelato and Clarke Murphy. And it is now one of, if not the most important relationship as far as where Clarke Murphy is today and where we're going in the future.
Mm. Well, thank you. I could not agree more. And if you take a generic view of the industry, when you have 16 software systems, from your perspective as an owner and CEO, what is the price you need to pay for having 16 software systems and leading up to the decision to go with the full MIS suite with Gelato?
Yeah. Again, you backed up with a great question. Look, the reality is the 16 softwares have got us where we are today. So, we've got to look in the rear vision mirror and say it's been successful. There's four major pillars to our business: great machinery, great people, great clients, and then I'm going to say software. Our software up until now, as I said, it's a patchwork of them all put together. But the reality is now we need it to be agnostic. We need it to literally be able to take a t-shirt next to a PUR bound book, next to a pull-up banner. So the decision to go with Gelato has purely been that your business has got experience in producing print on demand. And as it comes into the commercial space, I think these two areas are going to come together because our print on demand space is driving speed, and speed trumps everything, in this industry. We produce an analog media in a digital world, so we're going to hurry up. So the combination of having Gelato print on demand work and that workflow now being in line with and combined with our MIS, I can have full visibility of our entire business across every vertical, across every machine on the one platform. That there. Why? And why do we do this here? Because it's the cost of if we didn't do it. And I think this is where people get confused in regard to software. Heidelberg has PrintEct, HP has their own software, Horizon has IceLink, but very hard to connect them all together. If we didn't make this decision, I'd hate to think what the cost is to the business moving forward. The cost that we're actually investing in it relative to what we want to achieve, I think is rather small. And respectfully, compared to a new HP or a Swiss Q or a Heidelberg, it's significantly less.
But we speak many times in the industry, I feel we start to speak about cost. It's machine is first, and then we move to cost.
Yep.
I think we speak far too little also about growth. Now, I know you cannot speak about some of the contracts you've won here now recently, but what opportunities in terms of growth, not only because of our partnership, but also the customer demand and the B2B demand in the industry? Like, what is it that you're seeing in terms of growth opportunities coming with the new MIS from Gelato and also this partnership, but also your new investments? Because you have taken the apparel investment, and so you now offer more or less everything in the industry.
Yeah, no, again, thanks for the question. You're currently right now, and there's a few things I can't talk about. Hopefully, Print United I can once it's all done and dusted. We closed last financial year 15 to 20% growth last year. I genuinely used to get very concerned about how we were going to sustain that there, purely because of our software stack and platform. Whilst we haven't got it completely perfect across the board yet, I know what we've achieved together is just phenomenal. And that worry is gone. That is completely gone out of our business. In terms of the growth that I see happening, we currently have 4,000 commercial jobs from estimate through to invoice currently at the moment. And then when you put our on demand, there's somewhere between 8 to 12,000 print on demand jobs. So there's suddenly 12,000 jobs in the place. 3 different systems.
12,000 jobs per day, per week, per year, per month.
Well, in the daily weekly cycle. So it's an enormous amount. Yeah. And then I'm learning very quickly that the procurement side of apparel, it's not a nice to have, it's a must have. Suddenly you've got a hoodie as opposed to a piece of 100-gram GSM laser. They're completely different products, and you can dust up a lot of money very quickly. So there is nothing that has been able to do apparel and imposition for offset, and then also do a pull-up banner. So this is why this whole project, to me, and our focus is over the next, this is going to be just going for a long period of time, is just to lean into software, because ultimately what we're finding with what we're creating with you is Gelato Connect One, which is what we've rolled out, which is end-to-end solution, is an enabler to take on more work. It's an enabler to release touch points. And we produce, a worthless product that we can't resell. It's not, whilst I said at the start, it's a great industry, we can't resell these products. So, we've got to make sure that we take all the touch points out and then bring in new business. I think StoreLink is just going to be what is already, a game changer for us. We're turning off 2 print on demand platforms or web to print platforms. So, that is, and we can talk about some of those features later on, but I think that there to be able to be connected directly to our MIS, and again, next to our print on demand, it's a bit of a game changer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and StoreLink is our way for you to win B2B customers, is our web to print solution. And then we also have StoreLink for e-commerce, which is the linkage to any store that is on Shopify, Etsy, Amazon. And our ambition is to allow you as Clarke Murphy or the PSPs to connect to these stores, either B2B or e-commerce, in a few clicks of a button. But there are some people, like every change, it's interesting. I listened to Jeff Bezos had a comment. If you want to innovate, you need to be accepting that you will be misunderstood for years and even decades. And I feel sometimes when we speak about gelato and other people comment on gelato in the industry, that they say, for example, you're very much from print on demand. You don't know anything about large format or offset. Or I admit that we absolutely don't have a background offset or large format, but I also think that software is the enabler for connecting it all. And then we have people such as you and many, many other PSPs around the world, print service providers, that help and guide us into the other areas of the industry. But if you comment on that, from your perspective, we are now deploying Gelato Connect One across all of your facilities and in every single product category. If you have another PSP saying to you, Gelato has a background of print on demand and they don't know this or they don't know that, what are your thoughts from inside?
Well, first and foremost, I'll be honest, I don't want you to be an expert in offset or wide format, because I want you to be an expert in software development. And that's what I've come to realize with Gelato. I said that to you a number of months ago, having read a lot about Gelato as a business, spoken to you personally. I want you to be the best software development company that just happens to be in the print industry. That's what I think.
Mm-hmm.
Coupled with, I'm going to attend the 3rd summit that I've been to, which is the Gelato Summit. When you sit in a room with 100 other people or 100 other companies who have flown halfway around the world to talk about software, they're the people who I want to develop software with, because they've already lent in and they're already helping and they're already going to be pioneering or changing the way we do it from today to tomorrow. So, I think it's a question more that I want to challenge you to say, we run a really good printing business. Help us go from good to great. And that's what you're doing with us. It's not all sitting perfectly in front straight away, but I know, having given you and your team tasks, the speed and the rate of development, it's unforeseen with any other vendor we've ever had. And probably the greatest challenge that we've had with rolling out Connect One is, we have great other vendors, but they're selling machinery, and getting them to realize that change is coming, and it's coming very, very, very quick. And this is just not in the print industry. This is, AI. It's in every vertical around the world. But when I'm speaking to a lot of my vendors and saying this is what we're going to do with the software, they can't believe what we're trying to do. At the end of this month, on my phone here, I'm going to have the machine park of our entire business.
Mm.
That doesn't exist anywhere else. So,
end of this month, Ben, that's end of this week.
Correct. So, these are just amazing developments that are happening. And, I'm very happy that you're not an expert in offset and wide format and large format. I want you and your team to be experts in helping us deliver growth and profitability. And at the end of the day, we invest in products for profitability, and that's what we're doing with software with you.
And what has been the hardest? So kind of like two questions here. What has been the most difficult with implementing Gelato Connect One? And then on the tail of that, where are we now? Where would you say we're at in terms of deployment? How many jobs are going through end to end the MIS, and where do you think we will be in next month?
Yeah, great question. And the thing about software is if we buy a new Canon or we buy a new Heidelberg, we buy a new HP, we've got some gear coming from Karma in Germany in 6 weeks time. It's fantastic. It's amazing. It's probably only going to affect and touch 6 to 10 people. So it's only going to affect one department. The thing that I've come to realize with software is this is going to touch and change every single person in our business end to end. It's got to make things faster and easier. And that's the thing that I'm starting to realize with this entire project. In terms of our rollout and so on, we're somewhere between 30 to 50% of all our MIS jobs are going through Gelato Connect One. And on Tuesday, the 1st of September, our aim is to have 100% of all our MIS, all our jobs going through. So we're going to have print on demand jobs and our general commercial all through Connect One. Yeah, it's ambitious, but I know with our meetings that we have on a daily basis and the development and rollouts, I know every 24 hours when I walk in, there is so much change. So yeah, I'm very confident for the 1st of September, which will mean it's only been in here for a month since we've turned it on to really get going. So I think it's a big win. The other thing I will say to you is, and I've been very clear with our team, our current MIS and 14 other softwares, it's end of life for them. It is end of life. So
And why do you say it's end of life from your perspective, CEO and owner? What is it that you're seeing?
Because if I love Heidelberg. My family's been using them for forever and a day. We'll buy another Heidelberg press. But Heidelberg builds software that only is for Heidelberg presses. HP similarly, SwissQ similarly. We need something that is going to grab our whole business and come with us where we want to go. And that's why I have resisted and waited for so long until we met, until I heard about Gelato Connect One, and why I'm so ambitious about what we're going to do and what we're going to achieve. When we say we can only go as fast as the slowest part, like I said 20 minutes ago, my aim is that, estimating won't be the slowest, pre-press won't be the slowest. We're just going to unlock capacity that we haven't been able to utilize our machines. We've got enough capacity. We just want to bring more and more work quicker to the business. And that's what we're ultimately going to achieve with this year. And we're already starting to see it. So, I don't shy away from being ambitious, Henrik. I know you certainly don't. And I've been very clear with the entire team end to end that if there's an opportunity to improve and you have a suggestion, there's the stuff that are must-haves right now, and there's the development that we'll have in the next month that are the nice to haves. And that's been the crazy ride. That's what's been so exciting about this project.
And so when you speak about 100% of the jobs 1st of September, speak a bit, unpack that for the audience here.
Yeah, so I think when anyone talks MIS, everyone's shoulders go down a little bit because it is a big project. It's a huge project. And I think any business owner or CFO or anyone who's been in this industry, they've seen change with MIS as they come and go. And it's a long journey. I'm not going to mention other softwares because it's probably not the right thing to do, but I do know of friends in and around the world, not just in Australia, who have been, months, years, and ultimately turned off because it just didn't work. When I look at 100%, 100% of our print on demand jobs are coming through Gelato. Tick. You know, that comes as no shock. Gelato's been doing that for a number of years, whether it's work for Gelato or we're using the platform for companies like Hybel. 100% means that we flip all our general commercial into the same production board, into the same scheduling board, into the same procurement facility, in the same receiving, the same logistics, and the same estimating. So what I think is really exciting is suddenly now we're going to have StoreLink drawing estimates from AI Estimator next to our print on demand work, next to our general commercial, on the same scheduling, on the same procurement, on the same logistics. And then look, the only thing that we're not going to do with Gelato is we're going to spit all we've chosen QuickBooks because that's unique to our business. And we're going to spit everything out to QuickBooks. So suddenly I'm going to go from estimate, whether it's print on demand or a general commercial.
And for those that don't know what QuickBooks is, what is QuickBooks?
Well, that's going to be our accounting system, and
Yeah.
I certainly wouldn't choose, respectfully, I wouldn't choose Gelato accounting because obviously that's so different in every part of the world. So that's what we're going to do.
But also that's what we're now deploying a number of PSPs, our MIS in a number of PSPs, and we're connecting and integrating to those accounting systems. So typically that is kind of the software that we don't replace. Sorry, but just wanted to clarify that.
No, please. So suddenly, again, on my iPhone, I will be able to see every single job that's in the place. We will,
and that is next week.
Correct.
Yeah, because I don't think many. So what I don't think there are many in this industry that understand and are aware of the fact that we have done this in about 2 months, Ben, roughly.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And so how many you had 16 softwares when we started. How many are you now replacing?
The aim is on the first that we're down to 4.
So you've gone in 8 weeks, you've basically, a little bit more than 2 months, but you've gone from 16 to 4.
Correct. And that's where we're going to settle. The plan is that we'll run parallel for just 1 month and then off we go. So for our point of view, it's super, super, super exciting. For the team, change management's hard. It doesn't matter whether it's software in Australia or in Europe or America, it's always going to be hard. But to be able to go out to my customer service team and say, why don't you create your own personal dashboard that's just for you? No worries. Go to your Indigo operator and say, just have your dashboard that's just personalized to you. Go to apparel, go to wide format, to be able to just do that there and customize absolutely everything at the drop of the hat, that's already sitting there. That's not unique to Clarke Murphy. The greatest challenge that Gelato Connect 1 has had, and this is, again, I don't shy away from talking about challenges in this project, is artwork. Artwork is a challenge everywhere. You have a Mac and a mobile, suddenly you're a designer. This is a challenge everywhere around the world. If you're doing print on demand work, which is coming from a template, you're producing a mug, a calendar, a poster, it's the same artwork or template coming in. When you do general commercial and you're trying to automate absolutely everything, you're not in control of the artwork. So, we're taking that challenge on with Gelato and we're succeeding. It's really exciting. But, there's been bumps in achieving what we're trying to achieve, but, nothing ventured, nothing gained.
And can you give an example of 1 or 2 bumps and how we dealt with it and what other PSPs can expect when you hit a roadblock? If you can kind of just probe on 1 or 2 of those bumps and how we dealt with it.
Yeah. So we have on board, a couple of, we've just onboarded a new employment software completely separate to this whole MIS thing. And it's all been remote. And I haven't been able to pick up the phone, immensely frustrating. One of the things that I love about Gelato, and our team knows, is put your hand up for help. And then there's someone else on the end of the line. I think when you're developing something that doesn't exist in the market and you're challenging the status quo, and you can't go to the shops and buy MIS software for printing companies and just plug it in, or you can, which are probably looking in the rear vision mirror. But definitely with this project, there are challenges. But to be able to have the backup and support, and it's international, it's in every time zone. We're very, very, very lucky to have had that journey. I dare say I've met probably 30 or 40 or 50 of the Gelato team now, but that's just not me. That's my entire team. So we definitely broke the project up into sort of 4 or 5 different parts, and everyone sort of championed it. We've had a gentleman here called Sandaru, who's been the umbrella holding it all together, and he's the one driving that forward to the next step. But I think to have that security and the ability to make yourself vulnerable when something's not working and someone's on the other end, I think that's probably one of the greatest things that I've enjoyed about this project. Because
but you've been very sorry, I interrupted you, Ben.
No, again, we've been very direct about what we've wanted to achieve. Again, because we don't want to waste your time, and we don't want to create stuff or parts of software that's not required in other businesses. So yeah.
But one thing that I've been impressed by is also how clear you've been to your organization. I'd like to speak about a couple of things. So one is your leadership in this project, and you've led with complete conviction and total clarity. And so just speak a bit about why you feel that has been so important for you.
Without exaggerating, Henrik, and it's not because we're doing this here, I have said since the very start that this is the most important project our business has ever undertaken since Mum and Dad started in the garage. More than any other generation, this is the most important investment in our business we've ever done. The rate of change in 2026 is like nothing else, and it's going to be faster in 2027. So in order to do that, I don't shy away that the change is hard. When I sit back and I've come back and part of doing a lot of travel around the world, you meet some great people, some great businesses, and I've, from Simon in the UK, I've been to his place, to Matt Doran in the US. I always make an effort to go and see great businesses, and they're all great businesses. But if we just stand still, then we're not going to evolve. And, if I go back and use Alon from HP, he stood up at a conference and said, innovate or die. Now, we've all done that with machinery, but now that next stage is software. And so with my team, I've just been very, very, very consistent in and around, ask the questions, make yourself vulnerable. We will lose, you do lose good people when you challenge the status quo, but that's okay. Because if we stand still, someone else will take this space. Someone else will take these opportunities. And the thing that this project is providing, this is providing career growth and opportunity. And what my team, they want to be, I want them to be aspirational too. It's not just about me and my family. This is about my entire team. We've got 90, 95 people, we're probably looking after 500 to 600 people that are in these 4 walls. So this project is the most important, hence why, I've been very clear about timelines. That's why I'm happy to say publicly the 1st of September, and people can call me or email me and see how we went. We will be live with 100% on the 1st of September.
So when you speak and listen to voices in different parts of the industry that says it's just not possible to implement an MIS in 2-3 months, like that's just not possible. What would be your answer, and what would be your summary of why this is possible?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, you and I formed a very close friendship and relationship, and you said lean in, and I did, and I grabbed everyone to do that there. I think when you reflect on what's happened, we've had engineers here on site, daily, weekly meetings, but we've also been very clear about the different hurdles. It just doesn't come out of the box. It's just perfect, and you just hook up all the machines. We've had very clear milestones that we've had to achieve, and whether that's starting with, as I said, we broke up the entire project into 4 or 5 different areas. Someone was looking after accounts, someone was looking after estimating, someone was looking after apparel and procurement, someone was looking after logistics, someone's looked after the ticketing, someone's looked after the pre-press components. So, to buy print and to communicate with print about print, it's actually really, really, really hard. So we've spread the load. So, I was optimistic that we were going to do it in 2 or 3 months, and I can categorically stand here very confidently that we've achieved it, and we're going to constantly from next Tuesday. It doesn't stop. The foot to the floor goes harder. Now's the time. We've got more room for improvement. We need to make things go faster and easier. We need to tackle artwork. We need to tackle having not just our HP and Heidelberg and Swiss queues connected to procurement module. I want every single machine, because I wrote a note down here that I think we should mention, Henrik. I reckon if you put your hand on heart to a lot of general commercial digital apparel companies all around the world and said, honestly, put your hand on your heart, where do you actually make your money? What part of your business is actually fundamentally profitable? Just down to the dollar. I can say for Clarke Murphy, I've got a fair idea. My dad does too. And that's the gut feel. We look at the financials at the end of the month and they're good. This is going to enable me to have exact data across all areas of our business. Every machine, every quote.
So
it's going to enable us to have data. And that's ultimately why we went into apparel. DTG, DTF is data. And data is the king when running a business. And that doesn't matter whether it's Gelato as a software business or Clarke Murphy as a print business. When you can have you're estimated to actual data in front of you and you can compare, you can make better decisions, faster decisions. And again, this dovetails back into the only thing our business works on now is speed, and software and Gelato is that enabler.
And when we think about the machine vendors in this industry, my background is in telecommunication, and when we went from the old GSM network into UMTS, the 3G, the content, the growth that came with that came because you realize that you have Paramount Pictures that are really good at doing movies. You have Capitol Records that are really good at doing music. And then you have Samsung that are really good at doing part of the network. And then you have iPhone that is really good at making iPhones, or Apple that is really good at making iPhones. And so the ecosystem came together, and out of that unity and from that ecosystem came a ton of growth opportunities. Like our average order value from Tele2, where I worked, which was about a 7 billion euro company in Europe across all of the European markets. Like our average order value went from like $220 to $40 when you added all the content services, where more or less doubled, right? I am astonished why there is so much skepticism from some of the machine vendors in this industry. And why is that from your perspective? And from your perspective, what could it mean for growth and for prosperity and profitability if we did what other industries are doing, where you collaborate and you build together with the purpose of delivering just a better service to the end consumer or the company, the B2B customer?
Yeah, it's a great question. I can't probably speak for all our vendors, but when I look around, we are pushing our vendors as far as production as hard as we possibly can. Heidelberg, we've got one of the most productive presses in the world. Our Indigo's, in the top 30 in the world. Swiss Q in our top 10 in the world. So we're pushing them really hard with producing. The challenge that we've got now is to produce them really, really, really hard with software, and to take them further down the journey. In terms of why they're skeptical, I'm not sure. I'm not so sure. What I look around is This is about expanding the basket, expanding about the spend of our clientele in the basket. My pitch, and I was with a new customer today that I hopefully get to talk to you and your team, that who we're working with, but we'll announce hopefully in a couple of weeks.
And these are not the small company from Sweden or from Australia. This is like a global giant, right?
Correct. And what my pitch to them has nothing to do with grain machinery. This is more, I'm talking about, would you like a portal? Yes. Tell me the security status of it. Well, it's ISO 28001. Clarke Murphy Print was never going to get that. I don't know how many millions of dollars or time it spent Gelato to get that, but I'm a beneficiary of that there. So from 6 months ago, I would never talk about that. Now I can talk about that there. I'm sitting in the meeting and they said, now we need to have 2-factor authentication on every single portal. I said yes, because I knew that when I turned around, you would be there. That's the sort of rate of development that we need. I think further to that there, as this enormous world becomes smaller and smaller and smaller, and I'll go back to talking about the summit, that I'm going to join you.
In Sweden, we're going to have a summit. SPs from all over the world are flying in. We're really looking forward to it. It's in the mid of September. And there in the previous summits, you've also forged a lot of relationships and business opportunities, right?
100%. Thanks for helping me with that pronunciation. That there, collaboration, everyone talks about collaboration, but let's get serious. You either like to do it or you don't. But I know that if I rang yourself and said, I know I'm trying to remember the stats, so help me here. There's something like Gelato is accessible in 32 countries at about 155 different locations.
Yeah, more than that.
My aim is to secure accounts that are in Australia and run them from Australia in collaboration with other people. There's people would say, no, you can't do that. I say, yes, we can. I say, yes, we can. So that's just linking up the Gelato network. And then we talk about the summit. I know the guys at Print Clever won't mind. I'm working with them since being at a couple of summits. Great people, great family business. They're going
Print
so
Clever.
well.
Print Clever is a company doubling down on the global apparel industry. They have some of the largest companies in the gaming industry, and with that entry into apparel, all of a sudden you have common 100%. Denominators here.
So, Ryan and Laura and Tony, they've hosted me at their place. I can't wait to host them down here. We're collaborating. We're working together already. They've got clients that need to be in Australia. This is exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to say, well, yes, we can. We used to get off the phone and say, yes, we can do that. And we'd say, I don't know how we're going to do that. Now I get off the phone and go, no worries. I'll call people in the UK, Europe, Asia, America. Done. 24, 48 hours. It might be a Shopify site. It might be Etsy. It might be their own portal, and suddenly we can be producing, and we've geo-mapped the world to the closest to our end user, whether it's B2B or B2C. And I think that's one of the things that's going to happen out of this here. You used to have people that were just B2B and then B2C. This is coming together. There's no reason why that isn't and won't come together as one. That's certainly what I see happening in the Australian market. The speed of delivery, that's the Amazon effect. People don't want to wait longer and pay more. They want it now. So, that's from Jeff Bezos, as you quoted him earlier. So that effect is now coming into the general commercial.
And how does this link into the machine vendors, and what if you would speak to the machine vendors in this world? And by the way, we have very good relationships with many machine vendors, and we are collaborating closely with a number of the global machine vendors. But then there are others that are skeptical. And what would be your plea or advice to us as an industry and the machine vendors in this particular question?
Yeah, no, great. And incidentally, we're exactly the same. We've got great relationships with our vendors. We actually hosted a suppliers night last year, which was really beneficial about talking to them about our growth. If I could tell the vendors one thing, I would say understand what we're doing with your machines. if they understand that we need to do it faster, easier, and quicker, as opposed to just selling a machine. Here's your machine, it's $1 million, you finance it 5 years, and it's down to nil with no residual, and then you go and get another one. That's sort of 20 years ago. I want them to understand where we're going, how we're going to use the machinery, how we're going to drive profitability and production to these machines. So, and with that, the only way that happens is with software. And that's part of, and that dovetails why that this project is so important for our business and the industry, and the industry.
And we are now deploying our Gelato Connect One MIS in various PSPs in North America, in Europe, here in Australia, and in other places around the world. To PSPs that are not familiar about what this means, they've heard about Gelato a bit, but kind of like Gelato is competing with Optimal Print and Gelato Create, and it's competing with our business. And like, what advice would you have in terms of, as a owner to owner, to other PSPs? And then what would your answer be if a PSP says, well, but Gelato Create is competing with my business, or those two questions?
Well, great questions. And you look, I've learned over our relationship and journey, and me knowing Gelato more. First and foremost, Gelato is a software business from our point of view. It's not a printing company. Second of all, I would say that the learnings that Gelato has had with Create and Optimal Print, Clarke Murphy is now becoming the beneficiary of those learnings. So third, the dollars and cents and the investment from external that's gone into Gelato, which is public news, that's not just exclusive to me, means that the development of the software which has been funded and created from Create and Optimal Print, is supercharging our development in the whole MIS. So, and the last point is, there is so much work out there. There is so much work out there in every country, every continent, that if we're worried about that Create's getting it or Optimal Print, you're probably in the wrong industry, because there's so much work out there. Probably my last point on that there is, I want to understand how to connect in this creator economy, and Gelato has shown me from their learnings. Well, that's a yes from me.
I would also just say that if you look at the learning from Create, winning, for example, the customer we spoke about that we cannot mention by name, but is a well-known company to many people, everyone in the world. I don't think that would be possible without Create. So there are so many learnings that we can share with. It's almost like Create and Optimal Print, our consumer business, is like our high altitude training camp for
100%.
building the software. And then in terms of, I'm a PSP, I'm sitting somewhere in the world, I'm watching this podcast. What's the benefit of moving forward with Gelato Connect? And what can I, as a PSP somewhere in the world, do together with Clarke Murphy when I'm onboarded?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I think it's great you go to Droopers, you go to Printing Uniteds, or go to D-Scoops, all these different shows. They are hardware shows. What we've spoken about today is software. Machinery is really easy to buy. 2026, it's time to, again, these are only my thoughts and opinions, and I'm not the expert, but I'm getting a pretty good read from speaking to a lot of people around the world, is when you become part of a network that people are actually proactively wanting to help each other, it can't help but help your business. When you come to the summit, or you come to one of the Gelato software nights around the world, and I know you went to many cities, including Sydney and Melbourne, which was great, and you hear and listen, you hear about what people are doing. Some of the comments that I hear, and I hear, I'll just leave it for 12 to 18 months. Well, the world's going to have changed even more. Having learnt a little bit about AI through some of your talks, Henrik. It's really scary. It's really, really exciting, but this is part of the change. I don't think people can sit back and just hope that their business is going to change. I think you either have a go or you probably won't be here, because buying another Heidelberg or Indigo or Canon ain't going to help you change or drive production or profitability to your machine. Software and the way you change your customer's experience is ultimately going to be, what's the stat, Henrik? Is it 70% of first quotes, jobs that are quoted by the first person, go to that vendor?
Yeah, I think the stats is 70%, 71% of all the first responders get the quote or get the job.
Yeah. So, I know in our area of estimating, where if we put an ad in the paper, well, not that you put an ad in the paper now, but in 2026, we asked for a senior estimator. People aren't lining up to become an estimator. So, but
I don't hear any of my children say that they want to become an estimator.
Correct. So, but if you're someone who's in a dynamic company that's got an AI estimating tool, and they're also able to do some internal sales, build some portals, and suddenly they're wearing all these different hats, and they've got career growth, and they're being exposed to offset digital wide format roll labels. Oh wow, we're printing on hoodies and t-shirts and beanies. Suddenly, not so sexy printing industry, it's pretty good, and we actually make something, which is a really refreshing thing. So I would urge people to reach out. I've spoken to a number of potential Gelato people, and I continue to do that there. I'm going to be at Printing United. Very happy to talk about my journey and what we're doing. The good, the bad, and the indifferent. I'm not just going to stand there and say it's all rosy. I'll also talk about some of the constructive stuff that we've had to do together.
Nearing the end, I just have double click on a couple of more questions that I think the audience would like to truly understand. For a PSP that is sitting there, they've struggled, which we hear all the time. They've really struggled to get their MIS activated, deployed, onboarded. They've spent 18, 24, even more years deploying, or 18 months to 24 months deploying their MIS. But some, when we were in Australia, we spoke to one PSP that has been working for over 3 years with trying to get their MIS deployed and functioning. What is a realistic, from your perspective, and also bearing in mind and taking into account all the improvements that you've been spearheading, Ben, but what do you think is a realistic time horizon for deploying Gelato Connect 1? And your business, Ben, can you share what you believe run rate coming 12 months, what you will do in revenue, roughly?
Yeah, we'll be run rate coming up toward on $40 million, and we aim to do that with about 85 people. So, this is something that we're not going to be increasing the number of people in the administration sales area. That's because we're investing in software to enable people to do more, increase their capacity. If you got Gelato Connect 1 from where it is right now, so we're different because we were pioneers. Even with the AI estimator, we worked on that there and helped and developed. And I know there's been a lot of AI functions. I'd be very comfortable that you could be up and running within 2 to 3 months, but not for one module, for all the modules.
So then we're speaking offset, large format, digital, apparel,
yep,
the whole suite.
Correct.
So roughly 3 months.
I truly, from where the software is right now today, as opposed to when we started. So, we both know we've been on a journey, but that's been mutually beneficial to help each other out. That's what I personally think. To be able to hop into the machine park and download all the specs of your machines through AI, you can do a lot of the configuration. We had challenges when we uploaded all the stock books, but we were one of the first to ever do that. So, they're okay to be those learnings. But yeah, 3 months, I would really like to see that you would be able to be end to end, and
running 100% of your business over MIS.
Correct. Correct.
And
Correct.
and in terms of leadership, because I see a huge variety of leadership in this industry, of course, as in any industry, but as a CEO, as an owner, what are the two, three pieces of advice you would give to one that have now decided to move ahead and deploy Gelato Connect One? What advice?
Well, first and foremost, you've got to be having fun, because if we're not having fun doing all this here, it's probably not worth it. Second of all, got to realize that I'm going to go back to one of my opening lines. I personally think this is the greatest time to be in print, especially I'm going to reach out to the owners out there. You know, if you go to a barbecue or you go to the shops or you know go out for a meal with people and you say you're in the printing industry, I'm sure the vast majority are going to say, "Oh, you poor bugger, it must be a dying industry." And I'm like,
My
hold on,
mother did that when I started this
correct,
company.
correct. And
She
look,
was
there are
actually crying.
correct, there are some parts that are dying, you know, newspapers and so on. But if you go into your supermarket, that's all print, whether it's point of sale, whether it's packaging, that's all print. I'm also going to say that, and you might be able to help me out with some stats here, Hendrik, is apparel is one of the fastest growing segments in print. It's just another version of print. If I look at print on demand, you know, 10 years ago, I didn't want to do 10 business cards or one poster. Now I think that's the greatest job of all time.
Yeah.
You know, we've now got the creator economy. So I think my second point is you have to realize that this is a great opportunity, and the barriers of entry to start a print business are actually quite high. Software and hardware. Everyone's got hardware, so now's the time for software. So there's not a lot of new entrants, but there's still a lot of capacity out there. I think pick the team that you think can handle change and also influence other people with change. So, you know, I said we broke this whole project up into 4 or 5 completely different segments. You know, spread the load, spread the load. I would also say celebrate the wins, because it's such a big ride. You know, I remember the first day we connected our Indigos and Heidelberg to the procurement module so that they were self-ordering. We had a dinner that night because I just thought it was one of the most satisfying things that had ever happened. So celebrate the wins along the way, and also lean into Gelato, lean in on your team, because you guys are software experts. You're not supposed to be print experts. Your clients are the print experts. So I think they're my top level ones. And yeah, don't be afraid to ask questions or ask other people in the industry. You know, it's, you know, going to the owner's side, you know, business can be quite lonely. You don't celebrate the wins and you don't talk about it when it's going bad. But in this instance, I would definitely, you know, as I said, there's going to be 70 odd print companies at the next summit in 3 weeks' time. It's a very, very, very powerful community and event to all come together, and not one person is going to talk about machinery. It's going to be software, 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 software.
It's interesting when you mentioned the growth potential in this industry, and if you think about the creator economy, this is also another like misconcept in I think in this industry. We're constantly underestimating the power and the shifts towards printing, and printing has to be like defined. What do we mean by print? You could say manufacturing, and if you say manufacturing on demand or production on demand instead of print, all of a sudden, like I look at my own family members and friends, if I say we do production on demand across the whole planet, in 48 hours, you can produce a piece of art, a book, a t-shirt, a hoodie, anywhere in the world, and you have it delivered to an end recipient in like 48 to 72 hours. Wow, that's really cool. If you say,
Correct.
you know, I mean, in printing, there is a misconcept about printing being boring, dying, and so forth. But then you need to divide also printing, because digital printing, when I started the company, was roughly $80 billion globally. Now it's exceeded $200 billion. And that's like 120 plus billion dollars added in 15 years. And the music industry is like 40 billion. So you have added 3 music industries in 15 years and no one has really noticed. And so, to your point previously or earlier, Ben, there is enough growth there. It's just a matter of how do we unlock it, how do we untap it, and that's my plea to the industry. We need to look at other industries and we need to realize that there is no company in the whole world that can do everything. And when you work together, the whole becomes greater than the sum of the individual parts. And that's what I think we're missing in this industry. There is this massive growth opportunity that we are not capturing. And going back to the creator economy, this is a part of our global macro economy that didn't exist like 10 years ago. And now it's approaching, according to Goldman Sachs, we're nearing $500 billion next year. So $500 billion created 10 years ago and growing to that level. So where are we positioning our industry in relationship to that growth? But then also moving into B2B, some of the discussions you and I have had and you with my team here at Gelato about growth opportunities that are now coming to Clarke Murphy from global companies, that would be my kind of last. I have two last questions really. One, can you quantify like savings, cost reductions, efficiency gains by deploying Gelato in the company? I mean, you mentioned $40 million here on a little bit less than 100 people. And what growth are we speaking about that is possible to do without adding people? So that is also a big cost reduction, right? And then lastly, what partnership, what like collaborations do you see coming 12 months happening with you and other Gelato Connect customers, other PSPs running and operating on Gelato Connect? What is it that you're seeing in terms of growth there and partnership opportunities? So those two, efficiency and growth.
Yeah, fantastic. So efficiency. So that for the 40 million, 85 people, I don't plan to add anyone in our sales administration estimating pre-press team with any growth. So we could go another 10, 15%, 20%, and I don't feel that we will increase anyone in that space. The only people that will be joining our business will be production people. So I really feel that we can sustain 10, 15, 20% growth very, 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 very easily. So that's on the growth side. In terms of what we're looking in terms of partnering, and I think that was sort of the second question, we are looking to partner with as many international companies, and that could be a PSP that wants to have a facility here in Sydney that we can print and distribute for into Australia and New Zealand. That's a big part of our business and part of the growth model, and why we're so keen on the Gelato Connect module to be able to bring worldwide accounts, so that if we're partnering with Print Clever, and I'll use them as an example, which is a great example, we want to be their partner over here, and we want them to get the growth in Australia and Melbourne without the aggravation of coming here and setting up. So by having a symbiotic relationship between the two businesses, it's going to become mutually beneficial. I see there just being enormous potential for that there to partnering up in this Gelato network.
Mm. And thank you for that. And then last on the efficiency, you mentioned that you're reducing your software stack from 16 to 4, meaning that you're deducting 12 softwares. How is the saving from just removing those 12 versus the cost you're paying for Gelato? Is it like 1-to-1? Is it even so that those 12 is a bigger saving than what you're paying to Gelato? What's your view there?
Look, look, you can look at it software versus software. I personally don't look at it like that there. I look at it, what would it have cost us if we'd stayed with those softwares?
Mm-hmm.
What would we be missing out on the table? What innovation couldn't we do with those? Yes, you can go 1-to-1 and off you go. I think that's a too simplistic answer to the question. My belief is I can't sit in the same meetings that I did today that I could 12 months ago. I couldn't have the same offering. I'm not going to have the data available to make educated decisions. I can't tell the other 4 owners in the business exactly where we're making our money unless we're doing this. So I would say that there's a cost benefit in spending the money on the right software to get the right results.
So, Ben, really, truly appreciate the time you spent with us today. And you've spoken a bit about the Gelato team. I also want to just commend your own team. It's been absolutely fantastic to work with your team. So switched on, so leaned in. They pressure test us every single day. And you spoke about having fun. Like when we have fun, it's like when we have these type of partnerships, these close collaborations, and we get pushed to excel, to improve, to build more powerful software. We absolutely love that, and we'll speak a lot about that when we meet in Fiskebäckskil in Sweden. So listen, thank you for everything, and we're looking forward to meeting you in a couple of weeks in Sweden.
Absolutely fantastic, and a big thank you to Nico, who led the team out here, and your guidance and bringing the entire team out here and the ongoing support. Yeah, really excited for next Tuesday. I know we'll be fine, and really looking forward to meeting a few more of the team, also catching up with yourself. On a personal point, thank you, Henrik, and on a professional point, thank you, and you have a great rest of the week, and look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, and for everyone that is listening now, if you want to reach out to Ben, how do they do that? Over LinkedIn, Ben, or email?
Yes, please. I generally do a LinkedIn post once every couple of weeks. I think it's 1 minute. It's always a bit of fun. Please reach out to that there. My email is Ben, BENN, at cmprint.com.au. But if you can't get a hold of me, just reach out to the Gelato team. I know a lot of them, and they'll be able to hook us up. I look forward to speaking to as many of you as I can at the summit, and then also at Printing United.
Yeah, and we'll have a session at Printing United. So anyone that would like to join us there, welcome. And we'll see you either at the summit or at Printing United. So thank you, everyone.